Sky Fantasy Football Show. This is a Game Week 12 preview, moving on forwards as we look ahead to some upcoming single game days. You'll have to excuse the voice, I've got toothache. My dentist called off my appointment this week. She was sick, which means that I'm sicker, and I'm going back again on Monday. But we shall battle on. So, single game days. Let's have a look and see how we've got on in single game days so far this season. So the first one was the very first evening game, Manchester United against Fulham, and it was much ado about nothing really. The United defence kept a clean sheet, so if you had Onana or any of those, you were off to a decent start. Bruno Fernandes, he had 3 shots on target for 5 points, and for Fulham there was very little whatsoever. The second single game day of the season was fixture day 4, which was the first Monday night football, Leicester against Tottenham. And again, you needed to be quite fortunate to get a good score here. Porro scored the goal and he scored 10 points, so you'd have had 20 as captain. Next best for Tottenham was Johnson with 6. There was a few on 5s. For Leicester, Vardy scored, so if you had him, you'd have had 18. For Tao, he was a tackle monster and got the assist for 8. And again, not really much there. Then we moved on to fixture day 15, which was Monday night football, Bournemouth against Southampton. And Bournemouth gave Southampton absolute pasting. There was assists, 2 off for Cook, 1 for Tavernier, goals for Utara, Semenyo and Evan-Nielsen, and between them they scored 10, 8, 5, 8 and 9, so if you had any of those you would have scored a reasonable amount as your captain. For Southampton, Harwood Bellis got the consolation goal. He had an 11-pointer. He also had shots and passing bonus, so if you were fortunate enough to be on Harwood Bellis, you did well that night. It's not done you so very well for the rest of the season, though, to be honest. Then we had fixture day 20, which was the first of 2 back-to-back for Nottingham Forest. They won the game 1-0. Chris Wood scored. He had a 9-pointer. Sells in goal. He had a 12-pointer. And there was any of the 4 at the back, Moreno, Murillo, Milenkovic or Aina. They all got a clean sheet. The only one to get a shot bonus was Murillo. So he ended up on 8, the rest on 7. And then the following Friday was Leicester 1, Nottingham Forest 3. And Chris Wood, he scored twice this day for 14 points with 2 shots on target. So if we look back to 20 and 21, you've got 14 and 9, 23 points for Chris Wood, which would have been 46 if you had him as captain. And considering, we'll have a look at the total number of points that people have scored shortly, and 46 as a captain would have been pretty high up the table for overall scoring, to be honest. And then we look to the last single game day that we've had, which was Fulham against Brentford a couple of Mondays ago. A few people were on Flecken in goal. He was looking good up until injury time. He had 10 saves, but he ended up only on 4 points as Harry Wilson came off the bench. He had a 14-pointer for anybody who was lucky enough to have him. The popular picks was Smith Rowe. He ended up with 4. I was lucky enough to have Robinson. He got the assist for a 7. But the moral of the story really is, unless you've had Chris Wood, you haven't really done well out of these single game days. Now, there's a lot to be said for how Sky manufacture and manipulate the fixture list. We haven't had very many good games as is. And we'll have a look at these that are coming up, and you would say that they're not marquee fixtures by any stretch of the imagination, especially when we see who's playing in most of them. So I've taken the fixture ticker here up until Boxing Day. This is off Fantasy Football Hub. Other tickers are available, but this one's as good as any. And I've set this by attack, and we'll see at the top we have Bournemouth, followed by Brighton, and then Arsenal and Newcastle. Then Wolves, Leicester, Aston Villa, Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham, Ipswich, Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Southampton, Manchester City, Brentford, Everton, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, and bringing up the rear are Tottenham. And this is set on goals, expected goals for, so 10.9 for Bournemouth and 8.9 for Tottenham. So between top and bottom, there's not a great deal of difference, but it's interesting to see which teams are there when it comes to which ones we're going to be looking at moving forwards. So this is the calendar taken from the transfer planner. And we'll see here, I've set this up until the first week of January before there's the FA Cup break. So we're looking here from game week 15, which is upcoming this week, up to 21, which is the first one in the new year. And you'll see at the top of the screen, these are in green, which denote single game days. So we'll look and see what we've got coming up. And the first of which is on Monday coming. It is Newcastle at home to West Ham United. Swiftly followed next Friday by Brighton hosting Southampton. And then into December, we have a Monday night football. West Ham again. This time they host Wolverhampton Wanderers. That's fixture day 40. 43, the following Monday, we have West Ham again. They are visiting this time to Bournemouth. And then looking straight into New Year, on New Year's Day, we have Brentford against Arsenal. Monday night football on the 6th of January is Wolverhampton Wanderers against Southampton. So, where does that leave us with looking for some selections moving forwards? So on the radar here we have Matthias Cunha, Alexander Isak, Jared Bowen, Jose Pedro, and Semenyo. You'll have to forgive me, I've forgotten his first name. So, what do we know of these players? And we know why we're looking at them now, because they've all got one or more single game days. So let's start with the guy in the middle, Jared Bowen. Whoops. What have we done there? Let's move that back a bit. Can I move that back? Should be able to. So we want from current slide. So, yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. So we have there Jared Bowen. He's the first guy that we're going to be looking at, mainly because West Ham had all of those single game days. Let me just move that back. They've got one there on Monday. They have another one on Monday the 9th and another one on Monday the 16th. And we also note here on a week on Tuesday, on the 3rd of December, there's only 2 games being played that day, which are Crystal Palace visiting Ipswich and Leicester hosting West Ham. So if you don't have anybody from Palace, Ipswich or Leicester, then a West Ham asset might be the best you have that day as well. So let's move this back down. So we'll talk about Jared Bowen. 3 goals, 3 assists so far. He is reasonably expensive. He's £5.3 million in cloud. He does have an advantage over the other 4 on the screen, is that he is a midfielder. And as we've discussed several times now, a lot of the players in this game are, the best ones are set as forwards. And we note here that Cunha, Isak, Pedro and Semenyo are all forwards as well. So Jared Bowen, 5.3 million, he's a midfielder. He's got single game days coming up, and as we'll see shortly, he's doing well on points already. Even if West Ham are a bit under pressure, not performing very well, Jared Bowen seems to be the one that's doing okay. So we'll have a look at Cunha. He's a 3.6 million forward, 5 goals, 2 assists so far, and Wolves have great fixtures up until New Year's Day. If we have a look back on their calendar, they visit Fulham, host Bournemouth, visit Everton, visit West Ham, host Ipswich, visit Leicester, host Manchester United, visit Tottenham, and then that single game day hosting Nottingham Forest on Monday, January the 6th. So Good prospect, 3.6 million. Could be one to bring in. Alexander Isak next. He's a 5.1 forward, 5.1 million, and he was a staple in everybody's start of the season game. Newcastle hosted Southampton in the first match. He was on great form at the end of last season, but for whatever reason, Newcastle didn't start very well at all. But recently, he has been in form. They beat Arsenal. They beat Nottingham Forest, scoring 3 goals. They're hosting West Ham on Monday. Then they visit Crystal Palace. The midweek fixture they have is at home to Liverpool, so not easy. Then they visit Brentford. Slightly tricky fixture, but Brentford have been leaky. Then they host Leicester and visit Ipswich in mid-December, which are 2 attractive games, both leaky defences. And then they play Aston Villa, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. So good fixtures with a single game captaincy to start. And then Palace, Liverpool, Brentford. Then Leicester and Ipswich, 2 much easier games. So then João Pedro for Brighton. He is a 3.3 million striker, 3 goals and 1 assist so far. But as we'll see a bit later, it's a bit more nuanced than that. So if we have a look at Brighton's fixtures, they visit Bournemouth tomorrow, and then they host Southampton on the single game day Friday, and then they visit Fulham, visit Leicester, host Crystal Palace, visit West Ham, host Brentford, visit Aston Villa, and they finish on the 4th of January hosting Arsenal. So reasonable fixtures, good single day captaincy possibly against Southampton week today. Okay. And then Semenyo for Bournemouth. He is the cheapest of all. He's only 2.8 million in this game. And he is also set fair for fixtures. Bournemouth host Brighton. They visit Wolves. They host Tottenham. They visit Ipswich. They host West Ham. They visit Manchester United. They host Crystal Palace. They visit Fulham. And then their final game on Saturday, January the 4th, before the FA Cup, is they host Everton. So there, Semenyo is another player who been a bit of a talisman. Evan Nielsen's come in from Portugal doing well, but Semenyo, if you like the look of Bournemouth's fixtures, he is cheap and he will enable quite a lot in the rest of your team. So let's take that off. And this is, I have a copy of the planner up now. So this is where the calendar came from. And you can see here, still got it in position. And we're going to have a look here at the overall points. So these are all of the points that people have scored so far this year. And interesting to note, Jared Bowen is sitting there in 5th position. He has 69 points to his name so far. He's started every game, 22 points for starting. He's played 985 minutes, which is right up there. He's 3 goals, 3 assists. He's got 3 tackle points, no passing points, no surprise, and 10 shot tier points. So he is sitting there. Haaland at the top on 99, Salah on 87, Palmer on 84, Van Dijk on 74. Then all of the rest from Jared Bowen on 69 down to Emil Smith-Rowe on 55. Only 14 points covering the lot of them, which is not really very much at all. So we had a question, well, 2. One from Tim, who's in the chat. Evening, Tim. Evening, David. And from John regarding Newcastle and West Ham, the first of the single game days. The questions were Isak or Bowen or both. And from John, he asked if you've already got a if you've already got a Newcastle player in your side, would you consider Jared Bowen as well for the amount of fixtures that West Ham have? And as we sort of went through, with 3 single game days, and a de facto captaincy away at Leicester in the next 6 fixtures, that looks like a bit of a no-brainer. He's scoring the vast majority of West Ham's points. Even if they're not doing well, he has been. If Lopetegui gets the tin tack, then I imagine whoever comes in next will still like Jared Bowen. He's probably their best player, alongside Kudos, who's currently banned. So, yes, in answer to both questions, I like the look of Bowen, even if I think Isak's probably a better captaincy on Monday. Over the 6 games, I think West Ham must be the better bet. As we looked at the previous captaincies on single game days, you never know what you're going to get. So you really need to be in with the shout. So a bit like a lottery, the more tickets you get, the better chance you've got of winning. And if you're on Boeing, I think that's probably the way to go. And no spoilers, but that's the way that my team will be looking when we get there. So if I go back on here, I'm going to take off the goalkeepers and defenders and midfielders now, and then we're just going to look at the strikers. Reason being is that the guys that we are looking at are all in the striker position to fill these single game day captaincies, apart from Jared Bowen, who, as already discussed, we think is going to be there. So these are the top 25 strikers by points now, and we see a bit of a difference. So Haaland still well clear, Salah well clear in second, and then from 69 points, which is Jackson, down to 42 points in Vardy. There's a bit more spread than when we look at all of the points. So Jackson sort of got half as many again as what Vardy has. And if we look at players by points per 90, there's a couple of guys here that are doing better when they're on the pitch. Look at Luis Diaz, 9.25 points per 90. Raul Jimenez, 7.69. So Diaz has been rotated out of the side. Jimenez didn't start for Fulham. They had Muniz. So did I, unfortunately. And then Wissa, 9.11. He is back from injury. I think he's missed 3 or 4 games. And he is doing very well currently for Brentford. The other one a little bit higher at the top there is Son. He's been injured and out of the Tottenham side as well, but now he is back. But the one player to look at who isn't on this list, and we'll come back to him again, is Pedro. He's not played 2.5 games yet. He's on something like 230 minutes. And if he was here on points per 90, he would be on 10.85. So he'd be nudging right to the top of this particular chart. And if we look here at the ownerships, you can see here, this is the list of all of the... it's got... That's a shame. It's still got some of the other players on. I was hoping this would still only have the strikers on. But we'll go back and we'll have a look at that. So we look here at the ownerships on the strikers. You can see here Haaland, Salah, Mbeumo, Solanke. Everybody else, the next highest there is Chris Wood at 14%. Everybody, and 16 for Isak. Everybody else is well under. Most of these guys, Jackson's on 9, Watkins on 18. But then most of these guys, you've got 0.8, 0.3, 1.4, 0.3, 0.5. So as we've discussed several times, we don't have enough slots to fit all of these strikers in. So Salah looks like he's going to stay. If you want Haaland as well, you can only fit 1 in. Is it a case of move Haaland on to try and fit 2 of these guys in? Well, let's have a look. So this is the players by points per million per 90, and this is only strikers on this list. So again, those that are sort of punching above their weight, as it were, are Roger Lapp, 2.75, and Wissa, 2.76. But we come back to Pedro again. He would be on 3.29 points per million per 90 if he was... if he had enough points to get onto this list. And then we just have a look at tier points. So Haaland well out on the top on tier points for strikers, 24 shot tiers. Salah next with 17. Semenyo, he's got 9. And then there's a few there between like 14 and 10. So where does that leave what I'm looking at with my team? Well, let's have a look and see where we are. So this is what the current shower looks like. We have Muric in goal, Romero, Robinson and Van Heck at the back, Palmer, Saka, McNeil and Dibbling, stop laughing, at the back in midfield, and Haaland, Salah and Mbeumo up front. So we have some guys here that we need to shift around. McNeil is not long for this team. Dibbling, he looked great when he first came in for Southampton, but he's been hooked, and even at 2.1 he's not cutting much mustard now. So what are we going to do? What are we going to have a look at? So I sort of projected a bit forward. I put Bowen in, and I'm going to take a move. I'm going to move Haaland out. And if I'm going to move Haaland out, we need to start using some of the money. So I looked at moving Haaland to Bowen on Monday, and that was going to give me captaincy as discussed for the 4 games. And then I looked, well, I don't need Dibbling. Let's have a look at Pedro. Look at all of those numbers, 10.85 points per 90 and 3.29 points per million per 90. If he's in the starting lineup a week today, he can go straight in for Brighton against Southampton. And that gave me 2.1 million to spend. So then I had a look and see, well, Dwight McNeil, I don't particularly need him anymore. He's not doing much. Is there a fixture game? Well, yeah, I can move to Van Dijk, who, as we saw, was top of the defender charts. So I can bring Van Dijk in for McNeil on Sunday. I've just got enough money to do that. Leave me 0.1 in the bank. And then I'm looking next Sunday to move Mbeumo on to Jackson of Chelsea. As we saw with the fixtures, we'll just have a quick look here again. Chelsea, they play Leicester in the early kickoff tomorrow. Then they have a nice run here. Aston Villa, Southampton, Tottenham, Brentford, Everton, Fulham, Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Wolves. So all the way up to the end of January, where they visit Manchester City. Nice looking fixture run. So we can bring in Jackson, and he looks like he'll be near the top of the attacking tree, and he's only 4.0 million in this game. So he comes in there, and then that leaves me enough room for a luxury move the following midweek. If I want to do it, I would have enough money in the bank there to do Robinson all the way up to Gvardiol, and that would leave me with a team looking like Muric. Still not happy with that, but there we go. Romero, Gvardiol, Van Heck and Van Dijk at the back. Palmer, Saka and Bowen in midfield, and Salah, Jackson and Pedro up front. So I think that looks a lot better than the current effort. It'll take me down to 22 transfers left, but I'm not doing much good where I am, 137th. Need to attack, and if I'm going to take out Haaland, then I think moving the money elsewhere looks as good a bet as any, to be honest. I mean, most of those players that I'll have in the team then should be up at the upper echelons of scoring metrics. So it'll take a bit of a miracle to climb much quickly in the leaderboard, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that will be making moves as well. Most have got more transfers left than me, but something's got to give, and this looks like a good plan to me. So let's have a look at this week's fixtures and have a run through and see what we've got. So the early kickoff is Leicester against Chelsea. I think Chelsea will have too much for Leicester. Leicester have been a bit poor. Is Vardy back? If so, he might get a goal. They've looked a bit weak in attack, Leicester. So I think Chelsea will probably win. Jackson to score, maybe Palmer as well. I'm going to have 2-0. Bournemouth against Brighton. 2 attacking sides here. Should be an entertaining game, you would think. Bournemouth, they've looked good. They've beaten some good sides at home. They beat Arsenal, they beat Manchester City. Brighton have been playing well as well. They beat Manchester in the last game. It'll be an attacking match. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for 2-2. Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. Now, Arsenal have been struggling at the back. Not quite sure why, but nothing's quite worked out. Ben White's now injured. He's going to have a couple of months off, so I think Timber will probably come in. If Calafiori's back, will they have a first-choice defensive lineup then of Raya, Timber, Calafiori, Saliba and Gabriel? Could be. And they've got a nice set of fixtures coming up. So if you're on Arsenal defence, I think now's as good a time to sort of hope that they'll come good. Forest, West Ham, Manchester United, Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, Ipswich before they get to New Year, and then things are stiffen up a little bit more. Brentford, Brighton, both away, North London Derby, and then Aston Villa at home. So yeah, in this particular game, I think Arsenal win. I think it'll be tight. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Arsenal. Aston Villa against Crystal Palace. I think Aston Villa might have one eye on the Champions League in midweek. They lost their last Champions League game in Bruges, so that gives them 9 points, which is still good. Then they play Juventus this week, so it'll be tricky. But I think they'll probably have too much for Palace, but Palace might score. I'm going to go for 2-1 Aston Villa to win. Everton against Brentford. Brentford have been playing well. Everton have been dogged. This is a tricky one to call. I'm going to go for a draw. I think it might just be, if not a stalemate, I'll go for a 1-1. Brentford take the lead. Everton to come back. Beto off the bench. Fulham against Wolves. Wolves have improved. I know they're only playing Southampton, but their fixtures at the start of the season have been absolutely horrific. Fulham played well. I think I'd fancy Fulham to win, actually. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home win. Manchester City against Tottenham. So Kovacic, for anybody that's on Kovacic, he's been ruled out for 3 or 4 weeks, I think. So he won't be playing for Manchester City. They've got quite a few injuries. And they've lost 4 on the trot. So Tottenham, they looked very good against Aston Villa and absolutely woeful against Ipswich. So what we're going to get from Tottenham, I don't know. I think this could be quite entertaining. Plenty of goals about. I think City might just have enough. I'm going to go for plenty of goals. Let's say 3-2 for Manchester City. Then Sunday games. So the early kickoff is Southampton against Liverpool. Liverpool have been playing well. Southampton have been playing particularly badly. I think Liverpool will have enough. They do play Real Madrid in the Champions League on Wednesday this week. Alisson and Trent are going to miss out by all accounts. But I still think they'll be good enough. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. Probably Salah to score again. And then Ipswich against Manchester United. So Sky have certainly got this the Super Sunday with the first match of Amarant for Manchester United. I think they'll probably win. But I fancy Ipswich to score, and it might be that 2.5 million forward Delap who scores. In fact, I think they'll take the lead, and then Manchester United will come back in the second half and win 2-1. And then Monday Night Football, Newcastle against West Ham. I think Newcastle will probably be too strong for West Ham, but it should be an entertaining game. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, hopefully Bowen to score. Probably Isak too. So if you're going for Isak or Bowen, hopefully you'll have a good night on Monday. And that, there, ladies and gents, is it. So if you like what you see on the video, please give it a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. Thanks for those that joined us in the chat, David, Tim, and John. If you want to use the transfer planner that I showcased some of the moves on, you'll find that on Patreon, patreon.com, Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show. But in the meantime, enjoy the football over the weekend, enjoy the rugby. Hopefully England might actually get a win on Sunday, They're playing Japan, so if they don't, then I very much expect the resignation of Steve Borthwick. Football should be good. I think the Manchester game against Tottenham should be good. Looking forward to Super Sunday as well. And Monday Night Football should be a good game as well. So best of luck with your moves, everybody. Have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Bye for now. Cheerio.